Hey, what's good? There's no real good way to set up this video. This video is called The Theory of Stupidity. I'm going to be working on a commissioned art piece. Before we get into it, remember to go to coconutjustice.com to get some clothes that I think would look good on you. Let's go. All right, you guys, let's learn the theory of stupidity. That's weird because there's a lot of people out here that I don't think make it a theory anymore. I think it's a proven fact. Let's see.
Do you ever wonder why people ignore self-evident truths, even when the facts clearly support them? Or why political decisions are made that are obviously wrong and harm everyone? I believe so, because these questions are anything but uncommon, and most of us have asked ourselves exactly that at least once.
Okay.
The reason for such questions lies in the fact that we encounter these phenomena daily, and they affect us all. But how does it even get to this point? And above all, what can we do to stop such developments? One man who grappled deeply with these questions was Dietrich Bonhoeffer.
Okay.
He was a theologian, pastor,
German?
and resistance fighter in Nazi Germany. And he recognized that stupidity is not merely an intellectual
I'm not going to lie. My heart stopped just a little bit.
issue, but above all, a moral and social one. In 1943, during the height of World War II, Bonhoeffer was arrested by the Nazis for being part of the resistance. While in prison, he reflected on how such a situation could have come about in Germany. He asked himself,
There's a lot of reflecting and a lot of thinking that happens in prison. Because what's funny is, not funny, it turned out to be terrible, but like even Hitler himself, he was in jail, and that's where he came up with Mein Kampf, and that's where he came up with the thought of, and he just had enough time to sit there and motivate himself to figure out how to do what he did.
how it was possible that the land of poets and thinkers had devolved into a society of cowards and criminals. What Bonhoeffer observed at the time was not an isolated occurrence. The mechanisms he identified not only shaped his era, but are alarmingly present in our world today. When we look at the world today, we are struck by how eerily relevant Bonhoeffer's insights remain. Fake news, conspiracy theories, and blind allegiance to populists. All of these phenomena demonstrate.
Oh, we're going to need a moment of silence. Here we go. How old is this video? 6 months old. Okay. So it's pretty up to date. Let's go.
Just how dangerous the combination of power and stupidity can be. We are witnessing how disinformation is strategically employed to secure political power, divide societies, and suppress critical thinking. People ignore self-evident truths or allow themselves to be swayed by power structures and group dynamics, just as they did in Bonhoeffer's time. His words, therefore, are not merely a profound warning, but also a call to action for all of us to remain vigilant, take responsibility, and stand courageously against these developments. For the stupidity Bonhoeffer described is not a relic of the past.
Again, all of this happens when to the poorly educated and the uneducated. A lot of this stuff. So then when the powers that be do not invest in your education, what do you think they're trying to do with you?
It is a very real danger that threatens our future. But what exactly did Bonhoeffer mean when he referred to stupidity? During his reflections in prison, he developed a theory explaining how stupidity is cultivated within societies, why it is so dangerous, and why it is even harder to overcome than malice. Moreover, he was not satisfied with merely answering these questions. He also sought to understand what could be done about stupidity. But first, how exactly does this theory of stupidity work, and why is it so central to understanding our world? For Bonhoeffer, stupidity was not
Because you're only as strong as your weakest link. And if you have a bunch of dummies, you got a bullshit chain. Your chain isn't going to do anything.
lack of intelligence or education. Rather, he saw it as a kind of mental block that prevents people from thinking critically and acting independently. This mental
got lazy
blockage becomes
brain.
particularly dangerous in times of abuse of power and peer pressure, when individuals surrender their responsibility to authorities or the majority. Bonhoeffer also recognized that stupidity is not merely a personal issue, but above all, a social phenomenon influenced by external factors such as propaganda, fear, and ideology. Stupidity arises.
This is your propaganda. This is where all of those ads on TV. This is where when you go to a rally, all this stuff. When you go to a rally, you're submitting yourself to whatever, or you're I guess, yeah, you're just submitting yourself to something that is just straight up propaganda. And then when you go to rallies, you probably don't want to look at issues in from anyone else's point of view, because you're so convinced that you're right, or that your group is right, that you're going to go hang out with that group because you want to feel even more right, and you want to feel part of something, especially if it's right. But then unfortunately, what happens is you start closing yourself off to other people's issues. And if you're talking about the government is of the people, by the people, for the people. Not just a certain few.
Particularly where people abandon their capacity for critical reflection and independent thought, whether out of fear, convenience, or a desire for belonging. These mechanisms paralyze the mind and make individuals more vulnerable to manipulation. What's more, stupidity is especially dangerous because it often operates subconsciously. People who act foolishly frequently believe they are in the right and defend their views all the more fervently. This makes stupidity a force that is exceedingly difficult to combat.
How about it?
In his famous letters from prison, Bonhoeffer argued that stupidity was a more dangerous enemy of goodness than evil. While we can protest and fight against evil, we are virtually powerless against stupidity. Neither protests nor the use of force have any effect. Even reason proves futile, because stupidity triumphs over it. Another critical aspect is that stupidity becomes particularly dangerous when combined with power. Bonhoeffer observed that individuals in groups, or under the influence of
and your boy, he's out here saying, I like the poorly educated. I like the uneducated. This is why. He's telling you guys, and you guys are still falling for it.
authoritarian leaders become more susceptible to stupidity. The crowd provides them with a sense of security, while responsibility for their actions is transferred to the group or its leadership. This explains why people are willing to ignore self-evident truths and support disastrous decisions. In authoritarian systems especially, stupidity is deliberately cultivated, as obedience and conformity ensure the preservation of power.
Oh boy.
Bonhoeffer's reflections align closely with earlier philosophical views and studies. As ancient philosophers already observed, humans are inherently social beings, and it is precisely this sociability that forms the foundation of stupidity. Stupidity is, at its core, a group phenomenon. An individual may act foolishly without significantly affecting the whole, but when an entire group acts foolishly, it profoundly impacts individuals and amplifies the overall effect. In addition, human nature has remained largely unchanged over the millennia. Some internal processes of the human mind can even be traced back millions of years, to the period when primitive brains first began to evolve. During this time, numerous heuristics emerged to help humans navigate their environment. Among these, the tendency to follow the herd is perhaps the most well-known. As a result, many people believe that in situations where they lack sufficient information, the safest choice is to do what everyone else is doing. Unfortunately, this assumption is often flawed and does.
Yeah, so I read a book. I can't remember which one it was, but it talks about how there's power in numbers and all that stuff, right? And sometimes when there's one person that breaks the law, other people have a tendency to break that same law. So the example was when you're at a crosswalk and the little red guy is up there. And if you have a group of people, everyone for the most part will stand there and wait for the light to change so they can cross. But then if you have one person that crosses, then you can have then a second person is likely to go. And once that second and then the third one go, then the group goes. It's just something. We are a social being. We depend on each other, even when it's, making mistakes or breaking the rules or whatever. It's just how we're built.
Always yield the best outcomes. In fact, herd behavior is one of the primary contributors to stupidity. This phenomenon has been confirmed by numerous scientific studies. One groundbreaking and widely recognized experiment on social conformity was conducted by the social psychologist Solomon Asch in 1951. The Asch conformity experiment explored the extent to which individuals conform to group opinions, even when those opinions are clearly incorrect. The setup involved a group of participants seated together in a room, some of whom were secretly Confederates working with the experimenter. The participants were asked to complete simple visual tasks, such as comparing the lengths of lines. The Confederates intentionally gave incorrect answers to determine whether the actual participants would align themselves with the group's obviously false conclusions. If you found value up to this point, I'd appreciate your support by subscribing and giving this video a thumbs up. Your input matters, so feel free to share your thoughts or suggest topics that interest you in the comments section below. But we're not done yet, so let's keep going. This is where things become particularly fascinating, as the results were both startling and deeply revealing, offering insights into how stupidity takes root. The study found that approximately 75% of participants conformed to the group at least once, knowingly providing incorrect answers. This means that, on average, about a third of the participants conformed to the group, even when the answer was obviously wrong. This experiment perfectly...
That's interesting and something that needs to be paid attention to. Because if you have someone who speaks loudly enough or commanding enough or is convincing, they're going to convince you of some dumb stuff. And you can be sitting there and thinking to yourself, like, wait a minute, there's something weird here kind of thing. But this is starting to describe some of the issues that we're having in society today. People like feeling like they're smart. People like being a part of a group and all this stuff. And then they're just filling their own heads. These echo chambers, they're filling their own heads with strange ideas. The pizza parlor thing and all this other stuff. It's a lot. And for normal people, I don't understand why you would want to be a part of that world. It seems like a part of that world just never gets any rest. There's always something happening. Someone's always getting in trouble. Someone's always out on the get. And we need to start getting normal people in office. This is bonkers.
Illustrates the mechanisms that Bonhoeffer described. It shows that people not only conform to the majority, but also often abandon their own opinions to avoid conflict and social rejection. Additionally, it demonstrates how peer pressure can paralyze the mind and suppress independent thinking, a central point in Bonhoeffer's theory of stupidity. However, as briefly mentioned earlier, Bonhoeffer's theory was not just about explaining how stupidity arises. He also sought to explore what could be done to combat it. He concluded that stupidity cannot simply be overcome through education or reason. Instead, he believed that profound changes are required, such as courage, a sense of responsibility, and the ability to think independently and critically. But how can this be achieved in today's world, filled with fake news, conspiracy theories, and manipulation?
Yeah, we have to. We've bought in as a society. We have bought in on this thing that's obviously not working. We need to do something to correct course. Education definitely is one of them, but we need to change the culture. This culture that we have going on right now, where people almost take pride in not knowing things, and you know, it's obviously dangerous because we're living through it right now. But the hope is that with education and with getting people information on the internet, leveraging the internet, you're hoping that you're showing people the lies and everything. And again, I guess it depends on where you're getting your information. You need to be careful that you're not in echo chambers. You need to be careful that you're not only watching MSNBC, you're only watching CNN, you're only watching Fox. You need to go out and actually talk to people too, and listen to the people's stories so you can get better understanding. That's the only way we're going to get through this. We need to understand that it takes a village. And we need to be very careful with who's in charge of the information, because we have a lot of stuff going on, a lot of shady stuff going on. And the old way of doing things, where you can hide things in paperwork and stuff like that, those days are over, which is great. A lot of things are getting digitized, which is great. And a lot of things are instant information, which is great. But who's in charge of all of that? That's where we need to be paying attention.
What can we do as individuals to fight stupidity? A first and essential step is to foster critical thinking.
Like,
both in
eat more
yourself
apples.
and in those around you. This means questioning information before accepting or sharing it. Seek trustworthy sources and verify claims rather than adopting them.
And that goes for AI stuff too. Even before AI, there was people photoshopping like Trump and his parents at a Klan rally, whatever the hell it was, and that it was dumb. Whether or not they did it, I don't know. That's not the point of this story. The point of this story is, if you are making fake images and stuff against someone, you don't think that someone's going to do it against your team too? And then what happens is everyone keeps fighting and we don't ever get anything done. And the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer. So we haven't accomplished anything. We need to put all that stuff aside. We got to put adults in office that are actually going to make the rules that benefit us.
Uncritically. The second key aspect is taking responsibility. Acknowledge that your actions, or inactions, have consequences. Avoid being driven by peer pressure or the majority's opinion, and instead, make deliberate decisions grounded in facts and values. It takes courage to stand up for your beliefs, especially when they are unpopular. Yet it is precisely this courage that is essential in combating stupidity and its harmful effects. The third critical aspect is independent thinking. Do not blindly trust authorities, and resist being swayed by trends or majority opinions. Only those...
Not alone. That one shouldn't be too difficult. If you are, I don't even care if you think that America is a republic or a democracy. I don't care. The fact that people are going to one person because they think that this one person has all the answers, that's not why we're here. That's not the experiment. This is not part of the experiment. We're supposed to be getting along as a nation. And we're supposed to be improving ourselves as a nation. We're supposed to be taking care of our fellow members of that nation. And for some reason, we're on some silly bullshit ride that you're not supposed to take care of your neighbors. It says it clearly in the Bible. Everybody wants to fight against, or they want to fight for really dumb things. But all the clear things, the simple things, take care of your neighbor, take your shirt off your back and give it to the homeless person. You know, we're supposed to be taking care of each other, and we're just not, because we've been sold some fake bill of goods, and everyone thinks, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and then when you get to that point, then you pull up the ladder behind you, and everybody's struggling, and that's where we are. We're not watching out for each other as countrymen. We're not doing that.
Think independently can escape the grip of manipulation. Bonhoeffer understood that this is no easy task, but he firmly believed that each of us possesses the capacity to break the cycle of stupidity by finding the courage to think critically, take responsibility, and act independently. The ultimate question is, are you ready to show that courage?
All right. Well, that's the theory of stupidity. I think if we changed the culture of how we see each other in this country, I think if we educate each other, I think if we change the culture as far as like taking care of our neighbors and stuff like that, like literally all the stuff that some of you guys are pushing down our throat, you folks that go to church and all that stuff, that you go to church, but you don't pay attention to what you're supposed to be doing, you know? If we make better Americans, America's just going to be better, because that's just how it works. Build better Americans. The theory of stupidity. There you go. I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, share it with each and every one of your friends. And if you want to come watch videos with me while I work on creative projects, hit that subscribe button and then change the little alert to says all. That way, every time I come out with something new, you'll be alerted. Don't forget to go to coconutjustice.com to get you some clothes I think would look good on you. Don't forget to go to coconutjustice.com and get you some dope gear. And with that, I'm out.